Hey car fam, back with another video. Today's special guest is the 2022 Audi S3. If you know me, I'm definitely a huge fan of this car and I think it's super underrated for what it is. So basically Audi takes their most inexpensive entry-level car, compact car, the A3, and then they add a lot more performance to it. So you can actually tell just from a little bit of things right off the bat. If you look at the brakes there, this has the upgraded sport brakes. So you can see it's actually drilled there, and then you have the nice red caliper, which is super nice. This car actually has 305 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. So if you are a Honda fan, like a lot of my followers are on YouTube and other places, this is basically the equivalent of the Honda Civic Type R, the last generation, as far as like the performance spec goes. But the bonus is with this, you actually have quattro all-wheel drive, which will send power to the front, rear, of course, and all that good stuff. So you can put all of that power down instantly and then really enjoy this car all year long. I actually own an Audi, and these cars, especially like in the winter and like heavy rain, that's where these cars really shine. Like you can put all that power down all year long and not be losing traction all the time like you would in a front wheel drive car. So this one has the black optics package, and it is the prestige package, basically the top trim that includes the latest technology and all that stuff in there, which is super nice. What I noticed here is this one actually looks like it has bigger exhaust tips than the last one that I saw just a few days ago. So these ones are a little bit more like the oval pattern, which is nice, and then the tips themselves are bigger. And yes, this is just a garnish here, but it is connected. And then it does come with a different wheel pattern. So they have one that's a little bit more of like a grayer, flat finish, and that one I think is only like 5-spoke. It makes the car look very basic, but this one here, especially if you're looking just like close up or even from a distance, you could tell this one's a lot more just sporty. It looks a lot better in my opinion, which is nice. And then the lights here, they've definitely made a bunch of changes compared to the last generation. It looks way more futuristic, and then this looks extremely aggressive. So with the black optics package, basically this here is all blacked out instead of being chrome like on some of the cheaper ones. And then even here, the Audi logo emblem, this here is all blacked out too. And then what they also do is around the window, instead of this being completely chrome, this is all blacked out too. So basically all of that makes this car look a lot more sportier, more aggressive, and it definitely fits the character of this car. It's a sleeper. It's one of those like corporate pocket rockets in my opinion, because most people wouldn't really know what it is, but if you want to have fun and drive, it checks all those boxes too. So this here is the updated lights. I love what Audi does with their lights, like the design and just the actual performance of the lights themselves, because it's like the latest technology, super bright, very powerful, and also aesthetically pleasing at the same time with like this section here and just the overall design, super nice. And then the one thing I noticed here is this is actually functional, so that air goes through, but then on this side, it's actually completely closed off, which I thought was interesting. So, I mean, you do have openings here for cooling and then even down here as well, but I just thought that was, and even this section here too, but I just thought that was interesting that only one side, but I'm sure maybe on the RS3, maybe they have upgraded cooling even more so, but that was just one thing I noticed as far as like the design there. With this one here, you do have space in the rear, of course. I think it's 8 to 10 cubic feet of space. So it's good enough for like the average daily driver. Like honestly, it's pretty good. But this section here is pretty narrow. So like from this section to that section, it is kind of narrow, and I think it's a little bit smaller than the last generation, but otherwise it still goes pretty deep. And then they've made some changes where now the battery is actually back here instead of being in the front. A lot of that has to do with weight distribution. And then now that they're not including spare tires, basically have like a tire repair kit, all of that's included back here, which is just kind of the way the industry is going. But I'm sure you could replace, or not replace, but I'm sure you can get a spare tire in that way. If you do get stuck on the road, you don't have to fully rely on that tire repair kit. So now let's take a look on the inside. Definitely one of my favorite features too. So the design on the inside is completely different than the last generation, way more futuristic. Even looking here, you could see that the design is way more just like angular in certain places, and then this here actually matches like the RPM gauge when you're in a certain driving mode, which is really cool, nice little touch. This here on this model is actually lit, so that has lighting there, and then it has the Bang & Olufsen system. Basically, they're like really premium audio that they use with that company. And then a nice little touch on this one is that there you have the like door lighting underneath, which is sick. That actually has S there. I hadn't seen that on any other Audi before, so I thought that was cool. So I really love the seats too. It has the diamond stitch sort of pattern. So these here are really, really comfortable. I sat in them earlier, love how they feel. And then they're also supportive too, so you can kind of have a little bit of a aggressive bolstering on the side, but also super comfortable for like sitting there for a long time. And then here, I used to be a big fan of the flat bottom. Now, after driving cars and kind of experiencing different driving situations and things like that, this to me feels better and also safer to just be able to predict where your hands need to go in a situation where you need to like make a quick maneuver or things like that. They're still using the same exact pedal like designs on the outside, so all of those materials, this is literally the same from like my 2016 Audi, but I mean, it's classic, it works, and it'll still look good in 20 years, which is the cool thing. And then there is some extra storage here, so that's a nice little feature. So now, let's turn on this section. So this is basically what I was saying is very similar to the door, where you have that like hockey stick type of pattern. So as you're driving, your RPM gauges are gonna, you know, go up and then go to the right. You can change this view if you need like more information. So you can click this and then kind of go through different menus, navigation, media, different things like that. And then you can even have your map pop up, which is going to be like on the left side there. So basically as you're driving, you can always keep your head positioned in one space, so you can see the map there, and you can kind of adjust it and things like that. So that's super nice. Audi just does some really, really nice premium interiors and like the way they make their cars futuristic. So even my 2016 Audi, some of those features, like, yeah, they're older, but all that stuff still feels really like relevant and just classic for the time, which is nice. So you have the lighting here along the sides. It goes from this side there, and then of course all the way across, and then even to that door is just a little bit hard to see because it's bright. But this area here, super nice touchscreen. I've always loved the design of their UIs. Like this one especially is definitely my favorite. It just looks really like classic, minimal, really clean, really good black levels where it's like dark, but in the daytime, like you could still see all of this very clearly. The font they went with, like Audi just does amazing work. Like they pay attention to a lot of the details, so you can really see that something like this, I mean, just makes the driving experience that much more enjoyable. Not only is it fun, but you just have all of the, you know, technology that you want and use on a daily basis. So all your climate controls, it's nice that they are buttons. Some cars have everything in the center, have everything through the touch screen, but with this you have a little bit of, you know, future and a little bit of analog, which is nice because then you can quickly select whatever you need to. And then your drive select modes, so let's say you're, you know, wanting to put an individual or even like comfort, you can adjust all of that. Here on the touch screen, you can change your engine sound, the way your steering wheel feels, how like heavy or light it is, your suspension if you want it a little bit softer or you want it a little bit more aggressive, and then just the overall like driving dynamics of like how the car shifts and the way the engine feels. You can change that there with drive. So really, really nice, really cool to see all of that technology and just ease of use. I've only been in this car like a couple minutes, but I'm able to figure out everything like really easily, which is nice. And then down here, this is the only thing that I wish was different. In my opinion, it would have been, if they were just going to go with this and remove the lever, that's a little bit more traditional, it probably would have been nice to have just this completely gone and then have just whatever buttons just all flat here. But I'm sure they have this obviously connected to different things mechanically, so this was their solution to being able to still physically, you know, connect to the transmission and do different things through this little toggle. But maybe in future generations, they'll go back to just having a traditional lever where you can just adjust everything, because that does make the experience better, because in these cars, you can go plus or minus. It is automatic, so you can, you know, adjust how you're shifting and things like that. But with the lever, I think it just makes it a lot more fun. And then if you've been in German cars before, you know their philosophy is totally different when it comes to storage and how much should be in a car. So these cars don't have a lot of storage space, and even like the cup holders, because everything's different in Europe, it's smaller. It's just something to get used to. But at least on the doors, they have those openings there where you can put like a larger bottle and things like that, so you can still, you know, take what you need on the road. This section here is super nice. Like this pattern, I really love that little like weave that they have. It looks really classic, and this whole thing is just like driver centric, but even the person sitting on this side, they can enjoy like a nice experience too at the same time. So that is a really nice touch. So like I said, I do own the last generation, so I could tell they've made a couple of differences on the inside of this one to make it a little bit more spacious on the inside. So you do have these indentations, so that's always been there, and it helps. Let's say if the seat was further back, you get a little bit more room just because of that. So they have made some changes to make this bench basically in the back a little bit higher. So when I first sat in here, I could tell my head was a little bit closer to the headliner, but basically like other cars, even like the Integra I was in recently, if you lean back a little bit more relaxed, then you sit down, you have more head space, which is nice. And then it just feels really comfortable. Like this car on a long trip, I could tell even just from sitting here with the car not moving, super comfortable. This leather is really soft and doesn't have to be broken in crazy or anything like that. So I appreciate that they've made that change where the car's a little bit wider and a little bit longer, so you can get, I think it's like maybe 1 or 2 inches more of like overall space for all the people in your car, which is nice. And another thing that I like compared to other cars, sometimes the front's really nice and they have all this great material, and then you get to the back and it's a little more basic and toned down. All of the designs up front carry over to the back, so the people sitting in the back still get that nice, great experience with the way the seat is and just the pattern, the design. And then you do have climate control back here, which is definitely a must, especially in this price point. I could tell they try to cut costs by keeping this analog instead of having like the digital like they do in some of their other like larger, more expensive cars. But it's nice that they have 2 USB-Cs, which is nice, instead of just, you know, the old USB-A or just only having one. It's smart that they put 2, so that I'll definitely give them props for. And then here for the armrest, they positioned this here in a good place to where your arm still has space to be able to, you know, lean comfortably. And then the only thing I'll say is these are not that deep, so depending on what you have in there, the passengers probably need to hold it so that way it doesn't fall over, because this is not that deep. So other than that, it's nice that they at least have it. Some cars are getting rid of those, so that was a good way to make use of that space. And then one more thing that I actually highlighted in my last video that I'm still a huge fan of is this here. So let's say this car was white and the body was white and things like that. This here is always black on the front. So when you look at the car from, you know, this distance, it almost looks like the car has a full piano roof. So that's a really nice touch. And then you have your like oversized glass here for the moonroof. And then this whole piece actually will go over, and it kind of like hangs over the back. It doesn't slide through like this section here. It actually looks really cool, and it just makes your car look a little bit more beefy. It's really cool. So you have that feature there. And then looking at this here, I love how like this section here is not that big on the spoiler. Like it's pretty thin when you look at it compared to other cars, but the way it looks like overall just makes the car look really like nice and aggressive, but a sleeper at the same time. So if you look from this angle, you could still see the spoiler and it looks good, and it's just something that I really appreciate. And then again, I wonder what the aftermarket's gonna do for this section, because it just looks a little bit out of place. I wish they could have done something a little bit differently, but overall, like when you look at the whole package as far as the design, everything looks great. And then these here actually come out pretty long, which is cool because it just from a distance, this makes this rear diffuser look a lot more aggressive, which is cool. So one thing I didn't show is the key. It's cool that they actually put the panic button on the back. I've never seen that before, but you can see that there, and then your lock, press that to open the trunk and then unlock. It's a really slim key. It's like not that big, easy to fit in the pocket. I think it's just really cool. Fits the whole car, like minimal, nice, classy, spot on. All right, so there's a look at the Audi S3. Huge shout out to Audi Modesto. I will include the link to their inventory on the description below. So if you are interested in this car or any other Audi that they have, definitely check out the links below. Catch you in the next video. Peace.